All right, everyone, we're back live. This is the Trampled Underfoot Podcast show with your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escagedo. Welcome back. What's going on?
Oh man, everything and nothing all at the same time. It's weird. We're in typical Oregon springtime weather.
Okay.
Today, well, yesterday I think we hit like 51 degrees. Today we hit like 55 degrees. Tomorrow we're supposed to hit um 68, and then Thursday we're supposed to hit 87.
Okay.
Between now and then, it's supposed to rain twice. So it's unsettled weather, man. It's going all over the place. So I'm kind of at the mercy of dodging raindrops and turning on the air conditioner. I run the heater in the morning and then turn on the air conditioner at about 1:30 in the afternoon. So it's a weird time of the year, but it beats the alternative. It's good to be alive, and I'm doing better than I deserve to.
That's right. It is true. Well, it's good to be alive.
Yeah, big time, big time. Oh, geez, what's going on in Florida?
Nothing. It's getting warmer, and so for us, it goes into the extreme with the humidity.
Hmm.
So due to that, it's not that great of a thing. But if I had
Hmm.
to think something positive, um, the mornings and the evenings aren't that hot, kind of, sort of. So that's about it with that.
Well, now let me ask you a question. I know that you are real close to Florida International University.
Yes,
How far away are you from the University of Florida? Is that in Miami or is that somewhere else?
that's in Miami. I'm probably about 15, 10 miles away,
Okay.
roughly 10,
Okay.
11 miles away, roughly.
Okay.
Um, or even closer than that. Because where I live, I'm basically, it's all within a 20-mile span, believe it or not.
Okay. Okay.
So like when I say, oh, the beach
Hmm.
or the University of Miami, like you just asked, it's not so, so incredibly distant. Like we're in the ballpark big time.
Yeah.
But what happens is that due to our excessive amount of people, traffic, and just the layout of the land, um, meaning overcrowded, just everything,
Yeah.
um, to get from one place to the other is an exaggerated nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like another world when you go in a
Yeah.
direction like that.
Well, you're like 9 miles away from one of our mutual friends, and it takes you like 20 minutes to get there, doesn't it? Or longer,
It
depending upon
depends.
traffic.
It depends on traffic. At best, you could do it in 15 minutes, or 12 to 15 minutes if there's no traffic.
Hmm. But
Um,
in that big of a city, there's always traffic. Just about.
right, right. So it takes a little bit. Yeah, it's so why did you ask about the University of Miami?
Well, I asked that because I came across an article the other day, and um, it kind of interested me, but I wasn't sure how close you were to it. This was the most famous inventions from every state.
Oh,
And
okay.
when you say something like that, of course, I've got to click on it and see what it is, And I had to look up every state that I've ever been, resident of or anything. But do you have any idea what the most famous thing that was invented in Florida is?
The most famous thing that was invented in Florida. Um, invented in Florida. You stumped me.
Okay.
Can you give me a clue before you just,
It came
oh,
from University of Florida scientists.
gotcha, Tang.
Close. Very close.
Gatorade.
Gatorade is it,
Yeah.
and it was
Okay.
named after the Florida Gators.
Yeah. Okay. Now I remember. Yeah.
They were worried about the health effects of the football team's excessive workouts and sweating, so they invented it in 1965 to
Mhm.
replace the body's electrolytes and named it after the football team.
It took a little while for my brain to, because that's the sort of thing that but since I'm not too focused on that,
Mhm.
it went to the back filing cabinets of my head. But notice that little creature that runs around the filing cabinet of your brain,
Yeah.
he went running back there. He opened up the wrong drawer. He did open up the wrong drawer because he opened up the wrong drawer and said Tang. But
Well, he had to go one further folder because, I think that was, it wasn't NASA that invented it, but NASA ding dong sure used it.
yeah,
Do you know why they used it? Why they used Tang?
I have no idea.
It was to cover the nasty taste that the plastic that water bottles left in the water. It was just simply something to flavor it that they didn't have to add sugar to or anything like that. They could just mix a bunch up. And it covered the nasty taste caused by the plastic water bags and bottles.
Interesting.
Now, so were you aware of the Gatorade thing?
Yeah.
You were aware of that?
Yeah. 100%. It's just that it's when you're not present with, like,
Yeah.
if your mind, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know it. There's a lot of things that I know that what is it? I've learned so many things that I've forgotten them all just about.
Yeah, that's one way of saying it.
It just gets jumbled in there, and it's there, and
Mhm.
you can almost reach out and say, aha, eureka.
Yeah. Well,
You
the
know?
one from Oregon, I had absolutely no clue about. And it's kind of strange. Some of the things that we just take for granted, we know it's there, but we don't know where it came from.
Okay.
But the most famous invention to come out of Oregon was in 1995. A guy by the name of Ward Cunningham put up a website called WikiWikiWeb. He then changed the name of it to Wikipedia.
Oh, so you guys invented it then?
Well, this one programmer did.
Right.
He wanted to invent a website that would allow anybody and everybody to come in and create or update pages as new information was discovered. So he named it the web,
Yeah.
after a Hawaiian phrase, the Wiki bus, which just means the quick bus. And it was just a way for people to quickly create or modify an existing web page.
Which developed into Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, yeah.
I do want to mention something about Wikipedia because it kind of dovetails into, since I do all the research that I do and stuff. I mean, not better or worse than any other person, but like I'm doing that, on my level. Just not to be like say I'm doing all this research like with a lab coat and stuff. I just doing my thing. I've noticed as I read certain pages, not only Wikipedia, because I've run across that too, and we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Where there's inconsistencies that are not readily obvious for the general public. I know that I'm within the general public, but when you study a topic and you use multiple books and sources, and you're cross-referencing, and you kind of like have all these different I guess entry points of information and data from different books on a certain topic.
Right.
You arrive at some perspective that helps you see around corners a little bit, not perfect, because there's always a constant blindsidedness, but you have a better sort of grasp of the person that's writing the article or that wrote the article, the scope, that they're working in,
Mhm.
and if they're injecting things that need or would better suit the reader, um, a little bit more amplification of a certain passage
Right.
or a historical or a footnote, just so you can see how people and then sometimes you encounter situations where you read something that the casual user, like, if you type something in on Wikipedia because you're just curious, but you got to go and do the rest of your thing. You grab the information and you keep going. For the casual viewer, reader, they may just consume it, and then that information becomes a source that they can point to in their head
Right.
at that level, but it has little falsehoods in it that have been injected. I've
Right.
been coming across a lot of that through my study of history
Mhm.
in different ways, where I don't know if it's some sort of like self-induced bias or what. There's issues, and I don't know at what level it comes, if it's conscious.
Well,
I have no idea because I'm not in the person's brain, but I've been noticing stuff like that. Anyways, to
well,
wrap up that, well, let me just wrap this up. So the idea of the footnotes with the little numbers and stuff
right.
is very important. Um, because people can, kind of like in math class, make sure that you keep your worksheet so we can follow your work, like they used to
Mhm.
say, we want to see your work on the paper. 'Cause,
Right.
it's good to have footnotes and such so that people
Now,
can go and address things.
that's where I was going to go, because it's great to have a citation. If you
Yeah.
type in a fact on a Wikipedia page, and there's a you have a citation, you have a source that you can link to. How many times have you checked those sources?
I've checked them. I'll say it like this: not more often than not, but
Mhm.
when I'm invested in a subject, yes, I do. And I
Okay.
will I will read like the study, like I'll go
Mhm.
to like a page, like let's say it's a scientific thing. I
Uh-huh.
will read the study.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's boring as hell,
It
but
is. A lot
I'll
of
go
times it is.
I'll just go through and look through it and stuff. And sometimes I will just sit and read through it. But more often than not, I see there's a citation and I won't go, to
Yeah,
be honest with you.
right. I tell you, sometimes it's kind of fun to look at those citations and see what they're using as a source and see what they're quoting,
Yeah.
because there's some wild stuff out there.
Oh yeah.
And you know the deal. If you tell the big lie often enough, it becomes the truth. And I don't mean anything malicious like that. But if somebody tells a joke and it ends up getting printed somewhere, that can be used as a source.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used as a reference.
Yeah.
So I'm even kind of skeptical about some of the references there. More often than not, if I'm going to click on one of the citations that are footnoted down at the bottom of a Wikipedia page, it has to do with music, because for the most part, not always, for the most part, that's pretty well documented. Unless the songwriter or the performer has passed on, it's kind of hard to sneak something by, because facts are too easy to check these days. You
Yeah.
know, if that means anything, it
Yeah.
it it's just, I don't know. It sometimes I sit back and I wonder, how do these people think they're going to get away with this kind of thing when facts are just too easy to check, Because I can sit here and tell you that I served on the carrier Kitty Hawk 2 years ago. There's a way to go look. There's a way to find out. And you can't necessarily rely on other people, because something like an aircraft carrier is just too big. I mean, nobody knows everybody aboard an aircraft carrier, not even the captain. I mean, you have a crew of 5,000. Ain't no way one person knows all of them. But,
Yeah.
you know, but there are ways of checking. So, and no,
Yeah.
I was never in the Navy. I've never been on the Kitty Hawk. I don't know that I've ever seen it. Maybe flew over it once and didn't know it, but
But people build their so another thing with all this is there's so I'm talking in respect to what I was talking about in particular was
Mhm.
just researching historical stuff
Right,
that's sort of like on just on that history level. But there's
right.
all sorts of different disciplines, and this kind of ties into a thing that I had seen, which you've probably seen too, and it kind of ties in on the level of misinforming a person, leaning on conscious fraud, maybe for profit fraud and stuff. So
Uh-huh.
I'll mention this. I came across, and you've seen him probably before, that older gentleman. I forget his name, but he made his career on debunking throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and such, debunking people that can commune with the spirits and
Oh,
or do sort of what is it, kinetic, what is it,
telekinesis.
telekinesis and such,
Um,
um and he had like a beard.
there's a couple of them. One of them was James Randi.
That's the one.
Um, that's the one. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so James Randi, you've seen the famous one with the guy that with the telekinesis, he could he could make a pen move and make the pages of a book flip up. Did you ever see that?
I maybe years ago.
Okay, you got to see that. I'll see if I can find. In fact, I think the audience, if they haven't seen it, will like it. I'll post it in our Trampled Underfoot podcast page on Facebook. We'll link the video. Sometimes we'll do photos or links and such about the things that we're talking about. But in this video, they went on a talk show, right?
Uh-huh.
And I think it was Bob Barker that was the guy doing back in the 60s, like before. I think it was in any event, he famous talk show host, and he's got this guy, this lanky, skinny guy in his 60s garb or 70s garb, and he's got this phone book, and he places the phone book on a table and the audience and whatnot, and he says, okay, we're gonna see this gentleman, he's got telekinesis, and he's gonna make the pages flip and such. And he crouches down and he moves, and you see his brow getting, very, very creased because he's focused and stuff. And he moves his hands forward, and the page flips over. And he pushes again, and the page flips over again. And people are clapping, and it's like incredible. And, you know, and so then Randy comes in. And he says,
Mhm.
okay, so you agreed that, he'll give you $10,000. This is back then in the 70s or whatnot. He's going to give you 10 if you can do that again with one simple control in the mix.
Mhm.
And the control was that the phone book, this Randy guy took this bag and brought like styrofoam chips,
Uh-huh.
and he filled the whole table all around the telephone book with styrofoam chips and even
Uh-huh.
some on top. And then he says, okay. And the guy's standing there, and he does it again. He crouches down, and he's focused, and and he gets up all of a sudden. And the Bob Barker guy says, well, what's going on? And he says, it's just there's the lights and this rubber, it's causing electromagnetic interference. He said some gobbledygook thing, but the fact was, to make a long story short, the fact was that what he was doing was, I guess you guys out there can guess it already, he was pushing forward with his hands, but his lips, he was blowing. Nobody can see that on TV,
Uh-huh.
but he was blowing with his lips so that the wind that he would produce would go up on the page and flip it over. And
Uh-huh.
he pushed with his hands for the accentuated sort of like
Yes,
gesture,
the dramatic flair.
the flair. And And so he couldn't get his, and he left there with his tail tucked between his legs, and it was just
Was
hilarious.
was that Johnny Carson?
It was not Johnny Carson. It was a Bob Barker type guy. I forget that. I'll
Maybe
look for it.
maybe Mike Douglas or Merv Griffin, one of those guys. I don't know. Now,
Why it seems
and
like
the
Bob,
reason I asked about Johnny Carson is because there's a famous clip of him with Uri Geller. Uri
okay,
Geller was supposedly able to bend things with his mind, and
okay,
the most famous one was he would take a spoon
okay.
and hold it between his fingers, and he would focus on it and focus and get all dramatic like that other guy you're talking about, and then the spoon would eventually bend.
Hmm.
Well, he was on Carson one night, and what he didn't know was one of Carson's crew swapped out the spoons for just one they took out of their break room.
Yeah.
And he got out there, and of course, it didn't work. And he was just like, "No, the energy's not right. I'm not feeling it.
It's always
The
the energy.
energy's not right. Something, you know." And but I mean, they sat there, and Carson knew that they had swapped out the spoon, and you
Right.
can see a smirk come over his face when nothing was happening. Because I mean, the guy was sitting there and he's focusing and he's doing his thing, and absolutely nothing was happening. So yeah, there are a few debunkers like that. And actually, Harry Houdini spent the later half of his life going around debunking mediums.
Yeah.
Um, Now, according to his writings and his diaries, he did it to get rid of the fakes in the hopes that he could find someone real who could really do it. He was very much a believer in the occult, but he was also a big time skeptic and wanted proof. So his main reason for going around and debunking all these mediums and folks who claim to be able to speak with the spirit world is because he was on the search for somebody who could really do it. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one. So, you know, um, this Randy gentleman, um, he was interviewed and he was asked, and he said, "Well, listen, these people are going on about one thing is entertainment, right? Because
yes,
one thing is entertainment,
right,
but these people that um have an expectation of reaching out to a loved one um in the thereafter,
right,
and these people profiting
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 exactly.
profiting from I don't know why I felt like I was missing a couple of letters in there for some reason. It just didn't feel right
Well,
to
is
say
it PROFIT or PROPHET?
profiteering. Um, that's almost like going to the Caribbean profiteering, piratery. Um, so he says it's a despicable thing, having people, their expectations, this emotional thing, and then them paying a medium so that they could tell them X, Y, and
Right.
Z, when in reality, it's a total gag, and so he mentions stuff like he's on TED Talks. He did a TED Talk
Oh
as
yeah.
well, and so there's a lot of people out there that believe that because they want that connection, and it's a sad affair that somebody would, just like the snake oil salesman, would use that moment, that opportunity to extract from people that are of ill health and just or wishing that they could contact the level, and they're using that manipulation to earn a buck. It's just horrible.
Yeah. Well, there are people that feed off the weaknesses of others, and I mean that's been the case for oh god since time began. But as you said, magic, quote unquote, magic for the purposes of entertainment. I mean, yeah, I've been entertained by magic as a kid. I mean,
Yeah.
I David Copperfield, and then in later years, David Blaine and Chris. I can't think of his name now to save me. Um, I can't think of his name. They some really spectacular shows and some real neat tricks and sleight of hand, but it's beyond that. Harry Anderson was one of my favorites. He played the judge in Night Court and was a good stand-up comic. And but he was also a magician, and he did some very, very cool stuff. But again, that's for entertainment purposes. That's not promising that you can speak to the dead.
Yeah, but there's a moral, ethical, but that's also because some people are all relative about that. They, if a person is sucker enough to fall for it, they would figure, I would assume, then they get what they deserve, what's coming to them. There's people out there that will totally take advantage of another human being. And I think that I don't know what society across the planet would like to be had. I think that's something that crosses boundaries across. I bet you nobody in Egypt, let's say, like they're walking, would like to get had. I don't think any human being. So I think there's some sort of like humanity scale non-acceptance of being had or taken for.
In several cultures around the world, I mean, we're talking historically, I don't know about now, but fraud was punishable by death. If you were the low kind of individual that would, try to trick somebody out of something, you were seen as worse than a common thief.
Hey, if fraud was punishable by death in the United States, we would have to self-govern ourselves.
Well,
because there would be nobody left in the federal government. Anyways, continue. If that
where do you go after that? I mean,
No, but think about it. If that were the law of the land, boy.
Well, that's why I said in antiquity, So,
talk about cleaning the slate, right?
Yep. Well,
clearing the decks. Oh boy, I don't know why I found profound, deep, like honest, like I felt a wellspring of happiness from that for some reason, like real joy,
Yeah, well, Well, that was basically all I had. I just, I just thought that was kind of a weird article, and it's like I said, it was phrased in such a way that how could I not click that link and go look at that,
Yeah.
Because you got to find what the most famous invention from your home state was. You have to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a curiosity that you can't turn away from. I've got something to share with you.
Okay, go ahead.
I think you'll like this. I think you guys out there will enjoy it. Maybe not.
Well, we'll
see. I saw this video that is awesome, and here's the story. In England, current day, they are working on a savage project of epic proportions. Have you heard of it without more details? Because if you know already,
they're working on several, but
okay, this is a massive project. So what they're doing is they're going to do a train, like a high speed, running from, I guess, somewhere in Kent or London out, past it, like for quite a ways. But here's the cool thing about it. And there's various companies, but there's a company that put out kind of like a little mini documentary about what they're doing. Well, here's the cool thing. It's actually really cool. It's not just a train. If you don't like trains on its own, you'd be like, well, big deal, a train. But here's the thing. The train has to go through all sorts of countryside and cities from one point to the other. But here's the thing. England has, in its dirt below its feet, layers of history.
Right.
So this project in order for them to lay tracks, they have planned excavations of layers of earth all along the way.
Okay.
And they have expectations of their findings. And I think they've already done some. And they show in the graphs layers. The first layer going down reaches the industrial age. And they'll show it in the video.
Okay.
And so they might pick up things of the industrial age that's already been covered up through time.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also digging further down, and they're going to document everything. Further down, they reach medieval time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can pull from there and stuff, like whole towns and the remnants of everything's been built on top of it,
Right.
of it, as time goes on. So those remains on the bottom level are still there to whatever quality. Well, in any event, they are going to go as deep as Roman times, wherever they can have it,
Mm-hmm.
along the way, so they preserve their history.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, jotting them forward into the what are we, the 21st century?
Yeah.
Into the 21st century with this modern mode of transportation, public transportation, but they're at the same time wanting to preserve that history. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be working on it, and it is expected to reveal tons of archaeological awesomeness from all the eras.
So,
yeah.
so they're doing this the whole length of the route,
Okay, so I haven't
or is it
seen
just in
video in a
certain
couple
areas?
weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go back, but the way they it's an awesome video. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
saw it, I was like, holy smokes. I'll see if I can find that one. That's a little bit more difficult to place, because I don't know if I saw it directly on an actual web page of the actual company as
Uh-huh.
opposed to YouTube. I'm not sure about that at this moment.
Okay. Okay.
But boy,
Well, because
it's-
if they're doing that the entire length of this rail system, that's gonna be quite the undertaking, and it's gonna take a while.
you should see how the video, like they're like the graphics
Mm-hmm.
of the video and stuff, and they're gonna have whole teams like
Oh
archaeologists.
yeah, it's gonna have to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be savage, and who knows what they'll discover.
Really, there could be another Sutton Hoo out there just laying in the underbrush.
I mean, anything is possible because it's all covered up
Mm-hmm.
with layers and layers, so they could find all sorts of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just good news all around that they're going to be doing that. It's just simply good news all around, because the more of those bones that they dig up, let's say if they do find, and it's going to have to be that they're going to find human remains.
Well, it depends on where it's going, but yeah, I mean, the odds are that they will, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to find big, wide expanses of absolutely nothing. But then again, I mean, there have been people there for millennia. So the odds are is they're going to come across human remains for sure. It's just what era, you know.
They discovered in Notre Dame. Remember when Notre Dame, the cathedral, caught fire?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I if I recall, it was like in '99, or was it later?
Oh no, it was much later. We were living up here in Oregon. Let me look here.
Yeah. Because I read an article that was likewise mind-blowing.
It was 2019.
Was that not long ago then?
Right. Yeah, I knew it was fairly recently. It was 15th of April 2019, so not quite, almost 3 years ago to the day. I mean,
yeah, it somehow it felt like a distant, just all the stuff that has happened, that compounds. But I remember feeling when that happened. I've never visited but I feel like it's a World Heritage type thing.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's something World Heritage. It's like losing some sort of like world wonder or what. Well,
Yeah.
anyways, they found recently,
Mhm.
while they're doing the repairs to the remaining and removing all the crud and stuff, they're still working on that.
Right.
They found a lead coffin,
Wow.
and they found statues carved and all sorts of stuff like deep down in there.
Right.
And they've pulled the coffin, but it was a completely just like, imagine one of those old Popeye cans
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
spinach. It was a
Yeah.
lead in the shape of a human being coffin. Who knows what they're gonna who that's gonna be and whatnot. But the cool thing is now, with this was never possible years
Mhm.
ago, but
Right.
in recent times, like let's say the past 12 years, mostly closer to us now than 12 years, but it initiated about 10 to 12, 15 years ago, but more so now within the last 4, 5, 6 years, where they can draw the DNA from these samples for the most part. If they're lucky, they can get a complete sample, but sometimes they can just get enough so that they match up a chunk of letters, and it's kind of enough for them to say, let's test other people that are living against this to see how much. So maybe they get the Y-DNA or the, but
Yeah.
that's cool. So you never know if this dude or lady, and who knows who they were, and they can extract the DNA. That's another great benefit to the technologies
That
that
exists now. Yeah.
that exist now. Yeah. So it's really exciting stuff. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah. Just the archaeological discoveries that have been made in the past, just the past few years. I know you
Yeah.
and I talked about one the other day. I don't remember the name of the video that I was watching, but basically what they have discovered is it's been known and it's been theorized and known for a long, long time that man, Homo sapiens, originated in Africa. But a more recent discovery, and I really can't remember if it was late 2021, late last year or early this year, but it's a very recent discovery with all of this ancient DNA that's coming to light and results coming in from all these archaeological digs all over the world. They can say with confidence that Homo sapiens came from 3 separate tribes in Africa, up north about the middle, and then further south, but not way down south into what is now South Africa. But uh, they haven't gone so far as to say if they evolved concurrently or if they themselves were 3 split different, subspecies, I guess you would say.
Are you talking about that lady's video?
Yeah.
I saw I saw that video.
But there were
She's she's re,
3 separate tribes. Yes.
she's restating what has always been for
Hmm.
the past few years. But so we come from, so what she said and the way she said, I saw it,
Hmm.
and then I said, oh, I see why he said what. So the three tribes, um, like removing the word tribe, um, one group of people came out which were hunter gatherers. There were
Hmm.
other groups, by the way,
Yes.
but the thing is, um, for simplification, um, there was one group that came out first for simplification purposes,
Right.
and that group were hunter gatherers, and
Right.
they branched in different directions. But let's say the
Right.
ones that went to our neck of the woods in Western Europe,
Right.
um, they went there, and then they stayed there and populated. Then another group came out, and they were farmers.
Hmm.
And the reason they say they were farmers, it's weird, but they were farmers in respect to that they were actually farmers, right? That they would plant and do that. The
Right.
first people were kind of like, the
Nomads.
African tribes that we see, like the French guy that met the African tribe that one time
Yes.
and caught it on video. Those are hunter-gatherer people in current time. So these first people that came out were hunter-gatherers. These next people, they probably did hunter-gathering somewhat, but they
Mhm.
also incorporated a truckload of planting stuff and such,
Agriculture. Yes.
agriculture. They came into Europe, met with the other ones, and and overtook them, intermixing, and they were then the dominant ones. The other genes got absorbed into their body. People get together, and
Yeah.
some die off, and you become another whole group. And then the third wave that had originally come out, but came from the east, from the Russian steppe, then came and took over that previous group and incorporated into their bodies or into their population.
Yeah.
And then it became all of us.
Right.
So that's what she was doing, but she did it in her.
But if you look down at the description, her citations, her sources, and these are basically, like I said, it's for many years that was theorized, but there a few of those published sources are brand new.
No, she's repeating
relatively new.
She's repeating basically the source. There's a few I get what's this place? He's not Swedish. There's a guy called Pablo something or other. Then there's a guy called David Reich, and there's a lot of labs.
Okay? Right.
But there's davidreich.com, and those are the ones that do the studies. Like they're the ones, and they publicly put those. So a lot of people say, oh, it can't be trusted. The DNA, it's all a conspiracy. Sometimes they say it's a Jewish conspiracy. Sometimes they say this and that. But it's actually publicly available stuff. You can download the software yourself, and people do that, and they can download the samples themselves, and then they can do the
But what I'm getting at, but what I'm saying
let me finish. Let me finish saying this. Those are the people she got that from.
I understand that, and that's what I'm saying. But if you look at the sources that she is talking about, that you were just quoting, some of these reports that they have published are fairly recent. I just can't for the life of me remember whether they're for the end of last year or early this year. But that's how recent some of these studies are. As more information comes out, they are able to bolster their claims and their hypotheses. And that's what was coming out of all of this, was that they're strengthening their stand.
Another cool thing is that they've also discovered the idea of the Neanderthal. Originally, the Neanderthal was thought of as, just like the Flintstones and all that.
Yeah.
Savage and this and that. But the Europeans, some people had the notion that that's what caused the separation of European from the rest of the world, let's say. It's that inclusion of Neanderthal. It turns out that Far East Asians have more Neanderthal than Europeans do.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that Africans have Neanderthal, just that it's from other archaic humans.
Right.
That because they never went out of Africa in that original wave in general. The European population that we all stem from is a very small, tiny group. It's a little, just a tiny, like we're all kissing cousins. Literally, well, not literally, but figuratively, we're all kissing cousins because we belong to one wave that came out one after the other that created what but they found that Neanderthal has more human DNA that was recombined so when Neanderthals mixed with humans, they're just getting more human DNA that had been previously mixed in earlier on. So the idea that this was a completely separate creature that had never there was already previous mixing with them.
Now that brings up an interesting point here, and all we can do is speculate. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
I'm not an anthropologist, and I'm not an archaeologist. Okay. I know what I have read, and that's about it. And a lot of times I have trouble recalling exactly what I've read. Yeah. There's been several examples already in the last few minutes. But at what point, because taking to your point about the remixing and remixing and remixing, at what point does one species, let's say Neanderthal, stop being Neanderthal and is now considered Homo sapiens? How
They
many
never.
generations do you have to go with intermixing and intermixing before pretty soon that Neanderthal Homo sapiens hybrid is the same person?
Yeah, but they never. So my personal take. This is my personal take. This has nothing to do with. This is
Right,
outside the
right.
way out of field. My personal take, biased as it
Mhm.
is that we were human all along.
Well, no, I'm not
Because
saying that, but
no,
that's
no,
why
no,
I said Homo sapiens versus
no. I'm gonna say, but
okay.
I'm adding a caveat. In my personal
Mhm.
reckoning, biased as it is, we were always human because I believe in a creator.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll say that, regardless of, but I'm also not blind to information that comes to me. So, in other words, they don't have to be mutually exclusive in
Mhm.
my mind. Then again, for another person, they may think I'm insane, and I get that. But that's my personal view, and I know it not to feed that into the
Mhm.
thing. What they say is that they never were human. They were archaic humans,
Right.
or they were archaic humans. We could mate with them and such, but we broke that link of that original broke off so long ago. They never. We're the only ones that are human. Let's put it that way. We're the only ones. Others, in their reckoning, became modern chimpanzees, apes, and so on and so forth. So we're literally the only. They're all in their reckoning our cousins, but we're the only ones that made it to what we are. The other ones were kind of not quite, never did.
Okay, but more to my point though, at what point does one species die out and meld into another species? You know?
Oh no,
You
no.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, what they say about the Neanderthal is that they couldn't reproduce. So the males, they were inbred, right? Um, and so were humans,
Mhm.
to a great degree. But for some reason, the males no longer were able to, do the deed. But humans did get with them for a
Sure.
certain amount of time, and so it was through the female line that some of that DNA came in. But the males, and so because the male Neanderthals couldn't mate, their species just just went,
Yeah.
and we
I
incorporated some of it into our thing.
I know there's a couple of different theories out there. Some say that Homo sapiens recovered from the ice age faster and better, and others say no, that's a bunch of BS, and it was the reproductive thing. And there are a bunch of different. But my whole point on that is, look, if you take and I'm not comparing humans to dogs, but if you take a wolf and you breed it to a German Shepherd, you're going to get a wolf German Shepherd hybrid. And you do that with several different pairs. And then you breed those, offspring from the various litters together. How far do you have to go before you no longer have wolf German Shepherd hybrid? It's its own breed. How many generations before it's its own separate? I hesitate to say species because they're all dogs, they're all canines. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're
how
saying.
how far back from the original event do you have to go before it's no longer, and if those wolves in your little ecosystem and those German shepherds pass away, well then they have quote unquote died out, and what's left is the hybrids of both of those.
They found half Neanderthal, or don't quote me on this because I haven't looked. They found humans with, to them at that time, recent ancestors that their DNA would show
Yes.
that they had ancestors in a recent generation a few times back, that there were Neanderthals. These
Right.
were humans, but they contained that Neanderthal.
Right.
The problem is that the reason that they look at the letter sequences, and like let's say you and I, for the most part, I'm Southern European extraction, let's say, Mediterranean world, and you're Northern
European.
Europe extraction stuff. If you were to take our, and that's not 100% true as well, that's just, looks
Just depends
wise.
upon how far back you want to go. Yeah.
Well, no, just contain, like right now, what's in our blood, right? Like I know what's in mine due to the tests, but we're going. So, you and I have a series of letters in our DNA sequence that are going to match up precisely. Just you and I randomly, like let's say, and due to that, it's like, imagine a combination of 4 numbers, and trying to find the combination of that to unlock the lock. Well, imagine a combination of hundreds of thousands matching.
Yeah.
Between you and I, which we do, indicates a common ancestor. How far back is a different story, but it indicates it, and so that's how they trace. So Europeans are very close-knit group, even Middle East, just even Native Americans. Whereas people in real life before this technology, they would say, oh, those people are from a different group, completely different. Well, anyways, but Europe itself, it's a small population in terms of what we're talking about, not in terms of actual people. There's millions and millions of, the Africans current today, you can't say the same thing. The Africans are all over they're different. One group from the other, like insanely different. And so, but we have the reason we're a small group, this is like we're not literally, actually, we're a small group in comparison, is that we came out of a small group that came out many,
millennia ago.
But they have all this different variety. So that's how they know that the humans started in Africa and spread out to the rest of the world, and groups got together and formed their things, because there's so much variety here and there's no exaggerated variety out there in terms of DNA,
Right.
stuff. So, I mean,
I'm just wondering, at what point does one species end? Where, when you hear the phrase died out, you immediately think something violent. But perhaps that species was so intermixed with other species that, yes, the DNA is still there, but it's now a small minority of the other DNA. So the Neanderthal DNA may still be there, but it's not enough to say this was a Neanderthal.
No, we've incorporated it into
understood. That's what I'm getting at. But at what point is that? I mean, once Neanderthal gets down to below 30%, you're no longer Neanderthal?
Oh no, but that's
what I'm getting at.
That's a random, because they were. I don't. This part I don't know, but to a T, but they already had, before European contact with them, they already carried previous human DNA with. In other words,
Okay,
no, this is important. They came out of
I get
Africa.
that.
No, dude, hold on. They came out of Africa already with human DNA. So the thing
I
is, are dude, are they a different species? These people, scientists say that they were an archaic type of human, but were they something different? I don't know, because they already contain humans. So there's something there.
if they can find a different DNA,
Yeah, okay,
okay,
but
but that's what I'm getting at. Where does that name, that classification Neanderthal stop? And Homo sapiens become the dominant in the area,
I think that the key here is
Hmm.
this: that those letters,
Hmm.
those letter sequences,
Hmm.
exist in a certain pattern amongst
Right.
populations today.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that.
No, but let me get to no, but I'm setting it up for this. But the Neanderthals have the same letters, but the organization is in a different pattern that they can look at and say, this is not found in any of the populations alive today. And so this group here, but here's the thing: if you went to an island with five other people and you stayed there for thousands of years, or hundreds of years, or in 10 years, the more you multiply amongst each other, every time you mate with somebody, the baby that comes out is a mix of letters
Yes.
from you and the lady that produced the child. And
Right.
when that child does the same, it joggles up the letter sequences again and
Right.
again and again, so that if you pull your population 100 years from now and put them back in Europe, you look nothing like those people. You
Yes.
look like a whole population of your own. And so that's what it happens with all these populations. So, like, the humans that never went out of, they were already human. The ones that never left, the continent of Africa, they were already human. And our ancestors were already human going out, according to what they understand now. It could change, but so I don't know. I don't know the answer to the
Well,
specific
yeah,
question.
because and again, I'm getting back to the theory of why the Neanderthals died out, and my question is basically, did they? Did they die out? I don't know.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, well, obviously, but what I'm getting at is look, if I'm trying to think of other ways of
No, they didn't. They
rephrasing
didn't.
this,
They didn't, because we carry a little tiny bit of them,
right? To this day,
forward.
yes, exactly my point.
Yeah,
But there aren't, you can't go to Europe and say, ah, yes, he's a Neanderthal, she's a Neanderthal, nothing like that. We could go to where they lived way back when, but there isn't a group there now. What I'm getting at is at what point did the intermixing and the interbreeding and the hybridization, yes, we incorporated a lot of them into what make us now, but
some.
it's not like we went through and wholesale just killed them off. Is
No.
getting at what point did so much Neanderthal, was there so much Neanderthal intermixing with Homo sapiens, at what point did they just cease to exist simply because there weren't anybody left that was majority Neanderthal, is what I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
and you can say the same thing with hunter gatherers,
mhm,
European hunter gatherers. They
yes.
were a group,
Hmm.
um,
And at what
and
point did they stop being called hunter gatherers
no,
because they
those are
discovered the agrarian society and they started raising cattle and they no longer went off
yeah. No, they
into.
they didn't call themselves. We don't know
No,
what
I
they
know
called
they, yeah,
themselves.
I know that, but I'm
That's
trying
just
to be.
our reckoning. But those people which we carry with us. But this is so ancient. This is like so ancient, right? This is
Yeah, I
like,
know.
but those people, when the new wave of people came in and began that process of mixing with each other, it was just all it was humans from one area mixing with humans coming in from another area.
Right.
And the terminology of hunter-gatherer is less to do with them as a species,
No,
and more,
I understand that, but
more to do with them as a
a
name,
society.
a society, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
but at what point did they stop being called or considered hunter gatherers? When they became more agrarian, or when they started raising cattle and stopped becoming hunter gatherers?
Yeah. When
Okay.
the DNA, so what they've been doing is, and they have the numbers. You could go to David Reich. There's all the information is there. But at the point where the one population disappears, like from the fossil records, they see, because what it is that they see the bones. And by the way, all this, before this DNA stuff, the archaeologists already knew.
Yeah. They just had no way of confirming it.
They
But
just
now,
had,
by God, they know it.
the only thing they didn't know was, they thought there was two groups and variations thereof. They did not know that there was a third group that came out like within the past maybe 8 to 10 years or less.
Right.
And that third group were those people from the east called the Yamnaya, from the Russian plains, that came into Europe, that literally took over and had preferable dominance over the choices of females, and the original European males were completely replaced. So those original males, like, we are the consequence. Not all of us. There's still, but the majority replacement, the R1B that we've talked about, that came down to us because those final group, and had their way with the women of Europe.
Yep.
And then we come from that final group, roughly thereabouts. There's others that have not. Some people have lineages, that are European, but they didn't come from that Yamnaya group.
Well, I'm I2A and you're R1B.
Right.
So
I would be that the predominant all throughout Europe, the R1B, and you would be from Eastern Europe originally, or Macedonia area, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, what can I say? So we were way away from the Yamnaya, or we were the Yamnaya.
No, the Yamnaya brought R1B.
Yeah. So
the Yamnaya brought R1B, but it's cool because these places like the cathedral, the Notre Dame, stuff like that is potential places where they can extract and DNA and whatnot.
Look at that study that's going on in England. If that rail project yields the kind of archaeological finds that they're hoping for, I mean, it could blow the roof off of a whole bunch of misconceptions or confirm a bunch of theories that are just held as theory right now.
Who knows what they could find? Even
exactly.
Like manuscripts, or like at least written in stone or etched in. Who knows what the heck?
The artifacts there. I mean, wow.
Villas. Because London was named London by the Romans. Londinium. Who knows what's under there? I mean, they haven't excavated London, for goodness sakes.
Well, they've excavated certain parts where they can, but your point is well taken. They'll never be able to do the entire city because it covers such a huge area. But a project of the scope that you're talking about, it has the potential to blow a few roofs off and reinforce a few others. So
I'm going to try to find it, because it's a good video.
Yeah. Well, where the man said you can't tell where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I've enjoyed it, Mark. I've enjoyed. Well, you know that I've enjoyed the
Mhm.
thing. I
And
last
I
thing,
warned you.
last thing. Well, this DNA thing is a consequence of the what you call the genealogy thing.
Yeah.
But it's a good it's a good. There are two branches of a field of study. But I will say though that I've been shocked at people's. So I did a video. I'll just last thing I'll say. I did a video when I first got my DNA, if you remember, and I
Yeah.
did a video saying who's European because I had been studying, all the information because it's brand new information and I'm looking through it. So I did a video as I'm learning. I did a video, and all I did was use quotes from the experts and stuff, and I organized it as such, and that video is doing like really good. Um, it's getting thousands of views. Like it's at up to like 70,000 views at this point. For some reason, it's gained traction all of a sudden. I don't know why. Maybe YouTube's decided that hey, let's give this guy some.
It's a hot
views.
subject now.
So in the video, there's a point where I quote where it says David Wright quote. It says 98% of all. No, it says the DNA. 98% of the DNA of non-Africans is from Africa. Quote from because the concept that a lot of people can't get around is that Africa situation.
Yeah.
Due to colonial times,
Yeah.
we're living in this sort of like undertow of colonial times. I mean, it's in the culture, even though
Sure.
people don't acknowledge it because it's not in your face necessarily. But so there's these concepts and stuff. And people do not like that quote. I get comments, and they're like, and there's this one guy that comments. He says, "There we go again, picking on European, picking on European." I'm like, and I haven't answered a lot of those because they're just insane.
Yeah.
And like they go down the list because it's like it's an affront,
Mhm.
but it's not an affront if it's true.
Yeah.
And
The truth has no agenda.
And it doesn't change the fact that they're European.
Yeah.
It's just discovering information, and maybe tomorrow the story shifts in a certain way and stuff. For now, it looks pretty solidly, and that's the story. However, anything is possible. That we have to accept that. But it doesn't look good for the people that don't like that situation. Another one that they do not like is one that says Europeans or white Europeans as we know them today simply, this is a quote, simply did not exist 10,000 years ago. And people can't wrap their heads around that. I link all the links. People think that quote means that prior to 10,000 years ago, there was no white people. That's not what it means, although that's what it says. What it means is us today, with the combinations of people that we are today from the past, did not exist until those three groups that you initially talked about came together to form what is currently considered a European population.
Right.
Before that, there were people that looked, what you would assume Europeans would look like and stuff. I mean, that's the going consensus, but they weren't. If you tested their blood, they wouldn't match you. They wouldn't match me. They wouldn't match anybody in today's existence because they were only one piece of the puzzle of what makes us. But they're not willing to forego some sort of like news clip fanatic, thinking,
Well, it's just ignorance on display. They don't know the whole story, and they're willing to take what they want out of context.
yeah.
It's
So
selective listening. I mean, that's all there is to it. Selective listening.
and it is shocking this whole thing is shocking, and I
Mhm.
see it in the groups that I'm involved. It is shocking because people have notions, and if you if you uh if you try to if a notion is challenged, it's it's an affront to everything that one knows, and this,
Mhm.
but there's no real big deal because everybody's still what they are. It just, there's extra history going on in the
Yeah.
past.
And that's what I say. It just depends on how far back you want to go. I mean, I can say that I'm Scottish if that's as far as I go.
Yeah,
I can say that I'm Belgian if that's as far back as I go.
and you'd be right on both
And I
accounts.
would be right on both counts. I could
Yeah,
say that I am Macedonian or Croatian, and I would be right if I want to go back that far. It just depends on how far back you want to go.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I mean when I say people are people, lump
yeah,
warts and all. You know.
yeah. And some folks, just so that videos, but whatever. Let's wrap this up because we've gone the distance.
We've literally gone through human evolution,
Yeah.
and and we started it off with Gatorade.
All right. So listen, folks, we'll see about finding some of those links and posting them. Maybe what was the first one that I had mentioned? Was it the London one or was it something else?
It was not the rail project. It was or was it the rail project?
No, the real project was the second one. I had mentioned an earlier one.
See,
Dang
now
it.
even I can't remember.
Well,
Oh
we'll
man, I got to
figure.
start taking notes. We'll go back and watch and then post it over on the Facebook page.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, or we'll remember it. Once our heads get clear and we can find the file. All right. So listen, we go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time, and you can catch us here on YouTube on our Trampled Underfoot podcast channel. Like we mentioned, we have that Facebook page where we post items that are of interest and topics we talk about on the show. We also have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com, where you can catch our past episodes by pressing the Wayback Machine button. And we're also sponsored by.
Harneal Media, your web source. Look, if you're planning on creating a web presence or reinforcing a web presence you already have, maybe you want to open up a web store, you want to sell your merchandise, or you want to create merchandise. Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media, he's your man. He can put a web store up on your website. He can handle the web hosting. He can handle the web design, the whole enchilada. He might even be able to handle the enchiladas. No, I'm not going to say that because I don't know if Steve likes Mexican food or not. That's an avenue we've not explored with him. I'll find out and get back to you later on that. This will have to get edited out. I did it to myself this time. My train of thought is left standing in the station. Anyway, that's Harneal Media. That's HARNEAL media.com. Sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com.
All right. So listen, folks, we have a after show. So we'll catch you next time. Have a safe week.
Peace. All right, that works for me. God, I don't know why my brain went that direction. I said the whole enchilada, and that just kind of set me off.
Yeah, and I actually pictured an enchilada when you said that.
You know, we had beef stroganoff for dinner. It was excellent, I got to say. But now I want enchiladas. Oh, man. Okay, let's go back up through the. First of all, Jim Dockrell says Neanderthal chicks were easy, and I'm wondering how he knows that. Sounds like personal experience to me. Let's see here. To your point that you were saying how you got all this information floating around in your head and you had to run to the filing cabinet and you pulled open
Yeah.
the wrong drawer. Linda says, over time, your head gets filled with stuff. And because thoughts have weight, as you get older, the weighty thoughts migrate down. And that's why we get fat and we get old. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. And we need the food in order to maintain the energy to keep all those files.
Yes, exactly. You keep the hamster spinning that treadmill, or that wheel, not treadmill. Let's see. Daniel's talking about Harry Houdini. He wanted to talk to his mom, didn't he? Yes, he wanted to speak to his mother. That's why he kept trying to contact mediums. And in fact, I believe it was Houdini. I may be wrong on it. I think it was Houdini. He had a friendship with Arthur Conan Doyle.
I just remembered the video. It's the video of the guy, the
Oh yes. The
you see
James
how that,
Randi.
yeah. See,
James Randi.
we came back round.
Okay. Yes.
Wait, while we're doing this, I'll also take a side moment to find it.
Or just type up a note to yourself on notebook or something, notepad or something like that. Yes, he was trying to. Houdini was trying to contact his mother, or wanted to contact his mother, but he had a friendship with Arthur Conan Doyle, and Conan Doyle in his later life was very much a believer in the occult and mystics and what have you. But he spent a great deal of his later years trying to prove the existence of, elves and pixies and leprechauns and such. He thought that they actually existed, and that caused a major fight between he and Houdini, and they ended up just kind of, parting company and never spoke to one another again. So
When Houdini was around the early 1900s, like 1920s, 30s.
I think. See, I want to say Houdini died in the 20s. I may be wrong. But Conan Doyle was alive also. No, let's see. Harry Houdini died in when did he die? 1926. He died.
Yeah, so they were people of the 1800s.
Yes.
Born.
Yes. So
1926.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, Jim reconfirmed I'm that old. Okay. Yay! Check it out. I'm getting enchiladas tomorrow. All right.
Heck yeah.
Let's see here. Cruise down and find some more here. Steve Combs says probably an ignorant question, but here goes. So if the DNA is found in both species, how do they determine which species has contributed and which has received said DNA?
The idea of species. So received and contributed.
Well, it depends on which kind of DNA that they're actually searching for, mitochondrial or what's the other?
Y DNA.
Yes, it depends on which DNA they're looking for because both of them are different. Mitochondrial comes down from the mother's side, correct?
Yeah.
Whereas the big Y comes down from the father.
There is a question though about that I have that I'm sure there's an answer out there. The Y DNA and mitochondrial DNA that exists today,
right?
That I'm aware of, none of it stems from Neanderthal whatsoever.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I am not up on the archaeology.
So, well, no, the genetics side of it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean.
So these archaic humans
mm-hmm.
are so long ago that we carry on average 2% of it in our DNA. There's some people that don't. There's some people that have a little bit, some that really don't have none.
Mm-hmm.
On average, people have about 2% within their DNA. But it's so long ago, and the question is that, as a derivative of what was asked, is that
here's the other part of it. What was asked: who's to say those DNA strains weren't in those species all along?
right? So that's the argument that has been made, or I'm sorry, that's the study that came out, which you guys can find. I mean, there's published like peer-reviewed stuff that we all can read online, and it's like there's tons of it there where labs do the work, and they're so one that came out, they say that most of that DNA was already human DNA, already just recombined is what they call it, in its own way. So it doesn't. It's all the same letters.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all sharing the same letters.
Autosomal. That's what I was trying to remember. Autosomal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the answer to who's to say, maybe it's exactly that. Maybe it's exactly that the fact is that if you ever go online, if you want to check it out, go type in David Reich conference or David Reich whatever, and you'll it's some heavy duty stuff, but it's not beyond the pale of it's self-explanatory. But there's one, when I first started watching this back in 2018, there's one conference, and he does it in a few, where he's doing his speech talking about, and he's got his charts and stuff, and he's explaining to the crowds and stuff. And there's this one part where he stops and says something. I'm paraphrasing. He says, because all of us humans are a mix. And then he says, just like this, like I'm about to say, I'll cut it short, but he says this, because we are a copy of 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 a, and he sits there saying a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy in such a long that you can't help but sit back. Like when I first heard that a few years back, I pushed back on my chair. I was like, and he sounded like a broken record machine, but he's doing it, I'm assuming, to really emphasize the concept of just millennia of mixing.
Yeah.
And when he does that in the it's very shocking. Like when I saw, I was like, and it's hard to, I was like, trying to get what the hell does this mean then? It's some heavy duty stuff, So we're copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of copies.
Jim Dockrell says, I've seen people that the recessive genes are dominant. Yeah. I mean, we all know families who have that one redheaded kid, and there hasn't been a redhead in the family in 30 years or 30 generations. And then bang, there it is.
So a lot of people also say another thing, because I've also ran into, we're all amongst friends here. So I'll just say, there's a couple of extremes out there. There's extremes, depending on what they want to believe in the world, right? According to their groups. And it's understandable because everybody wants their group to be the thing. But so there's people, so Europeans as an example, how they have light eyes and the hair.
And some do, some don't. Yeah.
Many do,
Mhm.
and many don't.
Right.
The more towards the north you get,
The more
more of
prevalent that is, yeah.
and so but here's the thing. So blonde hair,
Mhm.
light eyes,
Mhm.
all that, those are recessive genes, right? They're recessive. Now, there's people that make an association or try to that recessive means weaker, but that's not the case. But they use that. There's certain groups that use that in order to like diminish
Mhm.
or sort of like, you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
on a political level or whatever. And there's a little bit of that on every there's a whole world of that messed up stuff. But here's the thing: recessive does not what it all it means. It could mean in some situations, depending on some genetic thing. But in terms of all that, all it means is that two similar genes
One of them is going to
together.
dominate the other. Yeah.
Well, no, that's so. Like, let's say let's say for your eyes, if you get the dominant gene of brown eyes, like I have,
Mhm.
and one gene of light eyes,
Mhm.
you get brown eyes. The dominant one overtakes the other one,
The recessive, yes.
the recessive. If you have two of the green,
Mhm.
you have green eyes. If you have one of the dominant, black hair, black, which is the dominant one, meaning that not, so it doesn't mean, you know what I'm saying, like what some people try to, all it means is that gene, once that's incorporated, it nullifies the other gene, because all it is a bunch of letters
Mhm.
matching up. All it is a bunch of letters. If two letters match up, you get this result. If two letters don't match up, you get this result, and so on. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
To the point about recessive and dominant genes, Steve said, "Yeah, I grew up with a kid up the street that I'm certain did those Geico commercials." He says, "In all fairness, I can't be sure his mom had to change her name on her driver's license, if you know what I mean." Yeah. Let's see. Species: Homo sapiens, genus Homo, family Hominidae, order primates, class Mammalia. They break it down through several letters. Yes, but that's Homo sapiens. There was also Homo erectus and Homo. Oh my God, they were all over the place. So
Yeah, well, they're trying to do the missing link thing. I
yes,
don't personally see. Well, I've said it already.
but there were differentiations between the species. I mean, of humanoids, hominids, however you want to put it.
Yeah, yeah,
Steve C, let's be honest, it's because they were ugly, Mark. That's why they died out. Okay, well, beauty is in the eye of the beer holder. At least that's what I was taught. Greg Snow Crusher says the first end-to-end human genome was officially published on March 31st, 2022. They did publish it. Okay, all right. I hadn't heard that they had published it yet. I knew that they were close to being end-to-end. Wow. Wow. Okay. Sure, Steve. Always take off just before we finish up and get ready to do the after show. That's okay. That's fine. Let's see. Frankie says, I grew up with a dude. His parents were brown and he is not. Has blonde curly hair and his grandpa's brother looks just like him. That happened to Skip. Yes, there are things that do skip. And I'm a good example of that. My grandfather was blonde. My dad's dad was blonde. My dad had black hair. I mean, coal black hair. I'm a
yeah,
blonde,
yeah. But
you
you
know.
could, but like I said, so like let's say your dad and your mom,
Mhm.
right? And like
Mom was a brunette. Yeah.
let's say they're all brunettes,
Hmm.
which you're saying they were, but let's say they're all brunettes, but you come out blonde.
Hmm.
If that's not a step a
My brother,
mailman's son, I don't know what. No, what happens
my
is that
brother and I both are blonde. So, yeah.
so maybe
Well,
who
4
knows how
years
that
apart, you know.
who knows how that works. Well, what happens is that your dad, even
Hmm.
though he's got the dark hair, and your mom
Hmm.
brunettes, they still carry the genes.
Right, exactly. I know, and that's what I'm getting at. And that's where
Yeah.
we get into the dominant and recessive. My dad has black hair, my mom had brown hair.
Yeah.
Her eyes were green, dad's eyes were his eyes were dark green, and I got kind of a hazelish gray,
So
So
if you would have gotten one from his, because it's all mixed up in there, and whatever you get randomly is what you end up with. So you ended up with So I mean, it's that.
Yeah, that dude got messed with a lot growing up because he's white and his parents are brown. Well, I mean, it's just people are people, man. Jim says none of my siblings look alike. My mom had a bike. Well, everybody needs a hobby, Jim. Everybody needs a hobby. I think we need to go ahead and land this plane. What do you think? We're getting way too personal.
Yeah, everybody's like an open book this evening.
I'm serious. Well, we went everywhere from let's see, what did we get? Most famous invention from either state, from any state. Notre Dame Paris fire, Harry Houdini. I'm going down the list of the tabs that I'm closing here. I even went back to that thing that turned 100 years old this year, because there's two of them that I would have never. Water skiing.
Water skiing turns 100 years.
Water skiing turns 100 years old this year.
Yeah, I realized when I was doing the edit for the last episode that we never kept going with the other items that were 100 years.
Skywriting.
Okay.
And it was originally used by British pilots to, I got to bring that page back up because there's a funny thing about it here. Hold on. Shift T, bring it back up. If you ever close a tab on your web browser and you decide you want that tab back, hold down Control and Shift and tap the letter T, and it'll bring up the last tab you closed. The British military used it in World War I to convey information to troops on the ground. But in 1922, it was first used in civilian life for advertising. Let's see. It was the brainchild of Royal Air Force pilot Captain Cyril Turner, who inked a deal with the Daily Mail to write the newspaper's name in smoke over Epsom Downs on Derby Day. Later that year, America also got to see Turner's handiwork. First, he flew over New York City and printed Hello USA in smoke. Then the next day, he did it again. He said, call Vanderbilt 7200. That was the phone number of the hotel he was staying at. In less than 3 hours, the hotel received 47,000 calls. Just from people who saw call Vanderbilt 7200.
That doesn't seem like an easy thing to do. You're in a plane and you have to calculate the turns in order to create the letter. That doesn't seem like an easy, and you can't, like when you're painting or drawing on a piece of paper, you can sit back and look at it, but this guy's up there doing the job. Yeah. That doesn't seem like an easy
He can see the smoke that he's already laid down and then kind of guess, to cross that T and come back around and, okay, I missed my O, and go make a loop, do the O. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you have to be a good pilot, because that's not. It doesn't seem like something, unless you have some sort of chart. I don't see a chart involved in that.
Do they even do that anymore?
I've seen it in real life.
Well, I've seen it in real life too, but I'm trying to think of the last time I did. I haven't seen skywriting in a long time.
But you have seen the banners, though. The banners.
Still... Oh yeah, I've seen planes pulling banners by and what have you.
I bet you've never in your life seen the Goodyear blimp.
Yes. And in fact, Linda was stationed with a kid in Hawaii whose dad was a Goodyear blimp pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've seen Goodyear blimps. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Why is that such a big? It's always been a big deal. Like whenever we were able to see the blimp, It was a big deal. It was kind of like, for some reason, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I was right across San Francisco Bay from Moffett Field, and there were several blimp hangars there from when the Navy was experimenting with airships in the 20s and early 30s. And the Goodyear and the MetLife blimp both were, there was a blimp from each hangar there. And because we had Candlestick Park for the San Francisco 49ers and the San Francisco Giants, we had Oakland Coliseum for the Oakland A's and the Oakland Raiders. And so the one or the other of them would usually come over to, broadcast, with a camera operator up there.
Yeah.
Okay, I made a mistake. He was the grandson of the Goodyear Company owner. Okay. I thought his dad was a pilot. I also knew the pilot of the Met. That's where I got confused. You knew the pilot of the MetLife East Coast blimp. That's where I got confused. I thought you were in Hawaii with the guy who his dad flew the Goodyear blimp. Turns out he was the grandson of the owner of Goodyear, but you also knew the MetLife blimp pilot. Okay. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Let's wrap that up. See, we went to blimps too. All right, let's wrap it up.
I've got like 10 more stories where that came from.
Oh, I've got a bunch more. This was this is an article from Reader's Digest called 100 Things Turning 100 in 2022. And one of them is the Reader's Digest.
We might have to revisit that because that's 100 years is a milestone.
Yeah.
So everything that happened in 1922, 100 years ago.
Yeah. Well, everything that turns 100 years old this year.
Right.
And I also found one for last year and 2020.
It's just insane, dude.
Yeah.
I saw, just last thing, I saw this meme.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, meme is a new word. In the past. Oh, you're saying no?
I think it's older than
older. I didn't say an age, a specific age. Let me say the age before you tell me how old it is. See if I'm close or not.
Okay, let me.
The word meme, in my reckoning, and you'll correct me obviously, is at least, I'm going to go ahead and say, at least 7 years old.
It's a little older than that, but yes, but it's not too much older than that.
How old is it?
The word meme itself originated in a 1976 book called The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins.
But come on. But in popular culture, come on, that's in 77?
76.
Dude, nobody, if you were to ask anybody, even in the 80s or the 90s, hey man, did you see that meme? Nobody would respond. I'm talking about,
a meme is an idea, a behavior, or a style that spreads by means of imitation from person to person within a culture and often carries symbolic meaning.
Okay.
All right. It was.
Come on.
And the word meme itself is a word coined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene.
No, dude, but you know what I'm talking. Okay, you do know that
an internet meme is completely different. Yes.
Well, that's what I'm going at, because nobody used. Did you ever use in your life? Because I know I didn't. I can tell you right now. I'll confess, I had never. One day on the internet, on Facebook, somebody wrote, "Oh, meme," and then I started seeing it more. And then eventually I introduced the word into my vocabulary. But before that, I was reluctant. So it didn't exist for me for the past 40 years of my life.
Yeah, but I would imagine there's a whole bunch of other thoughts and ideas and words that didn't exist to you before we got on the internet as well. It's just only recently come into popular culture.
Well,
but that doesn't mean it didn't exist.
Okay, so granted, it was tucked away and then it was produced in here in the two. When was it
Mhm.
produced online where it became fashionable? That's the
Oh, okay. Well, let me look for that.
because I mean 1976. It's like, come on. I mean,
Evolution and
fine, it's
propagation.
technically you're there, but boy, talk about
It doesn't really say when it kind of started. It doesn't say when it started.
this is a difficult. I mean, we use it a lot, or I mean, it's used a lot, so we
Mhm.
should sort of have an idea. I'm saying 2000 and I'm saying 7 years ago. I'm looking at 2016
Well,
when I first more or less heard it for the first time.
I had heard it. Okay, let's see. The word meme was coined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, as an attempt to explain how ideas replicate, mutate, and evolve.
Well, that is kind of what memes online are doing.
Emoticons are one of the first resemblances of internet memes. In 1982, Scott Fallman introduced the sideways smiley face formed by punctuation marks with the intention of creating emotion and expressions with the use of digital imagery. The concept of the internet meme was first proposed by Mike Godwin in June of 1993 issue of Wired magazine.
Yeah, you know what? Something's terribly wrong with all this because I'm talking like these people are like really like squeezing blood from the rock. I'm talking about us, all of us hanging out
For
and
internet culture, yes.
for internet culture because before that, I don't care if some dude in his garage or up in a cabin typing a book or whatever the case, because
Well,
nobody was using it.
for
No, did
here,
you? Did
internet
you?
internet memes grew as a concept in the mid 1990s. At the time, memes were short clips that were shared between people on Usenet forums. As the internet evolved, so did memes. Over the years, many memes originated on the 4chan website. When YouTube was released in 2005, video memes became popular. Around this time, Rickrolling got real popular, and the link to this video was sent around the world via email and other messaging sites.
That was a meme. Yeah.
Right. And that was 2005, you know. But internet memes grew as a concept in the mid 1990s, but it traces its way back into 1993. Dawkins himself characterized an internet meme as being a meme deliberately altered by human creativity, distinguished from biological genes and his own pre-internet concept of a meme.
Yeah.
So,
So but so had you heard of it before?
I had not heard that word, but I understood the concept. I knew the concept of a meme. You
Well,
know,
yeah, like a little jokey
yes.
flyer, a little thing.
Well,
Sure.
remember, I don't know. You may not remember this. I don't know. You were a baby when these were popular. At least in the Bay Area, California, everybody had an "I found it" bumper sticker on the back of their car, and you have a yellow bumper sticker with black letters that said "I found it," and then pretty
Right.
soon you had other stickers that says "I lost it," and other
Okay.
stickers that said "I never had it." Other
Right.
stickers says "I don't even know what it is," and other ones saying "I am it." That kind of thing. To me, that's a meme. But
Okay.
this was back in the 70s. I understood the concept of a meme, but I didn't know what a meme was. I'd never heard
Right.
the word.
Okay. So yeah. So we can apply that to anything. But the I guess I'm gonna stick to until we find because all this is all well and fine. You can't say no to what you. But at the same time, there was a moment when there was a where all people were starting to do that online,
Yeah.
and there was a point where not many were doing it, and there was a point when people were doing that online and calling it a meme as opposed to not calling it a meme online.
Right.
And that's the point that I just saw Snow Crusher. Can you pull up what his
What?
little
Which one?
Whichever one that Eloy knows all, and the one before it. If Eloy hasn't heard of it, it doesn't exist. Greg, Greg, I have a movie for you. I have a movie that's right up your alley. It's called Transylvania Vampires.
I don't want to.
What?
I don't want to hear nothing about dad jokes. Not a word.
After supper, I like to go to the library and watch the Reader's Digest.
And on that happy note, time to say goodnight, Gracie.
All right. See, instead of loving and the Canadian has to be evil and vindictive. I'm talking about Snow Crusher. Because we have more than one Canadian. All right, guys. You know what? We're done.
We've overstayed our welcome.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys.
See you next week. Take care.